Welcome to the Raising Confident Girls podcast, your guide to raising strong, confident daughters. I'm Melissa Jones, the founder of Girls Positivity Club and a teacher for over 20 years. In a world where girls often feel overwhelmed, anxious, and confused, this podcast is your go-to space. As caregivers, we navigate challenges together. I founded Girls Positivity Club to provide a place where you belong and get the tools to face today's hurdles. Consider this your regular check-in with a trusted friend, offering insights and practical tips for meaningful conversations. I'm here to help you feel confident on this journey of raising a generation of empowered girls. Let's dive in and raise those confident girls together. Hi everybody, it's Melissa. There are certain moments with our daughters that seem ordinary at the time, but then you can't stop thinking about them. That's what happened to me at camp this week. It all started with one simple question. Has your daughter ever leaned over and whispered, "Can you ask for me?" Maybe you're standing in line at a restaurant and she was perfectly happy to order her own food until the server walked over. Maybe you're checking in at the dentist and suddenly she wants you to answer all the questions. Maybe she's standing at the edge of a group of girls at the park or a birthday party and quietly says, "Can you ask if I can play?" Or maybe your daughter is older now. Maybe she's asking you to email the teacher, text another mom, talk to the coach, ask the question she's nervous to ask herself. I think every parent has experienced some version of this. And if you're anything like me, your first instinct is probably the same as mine. You want to help. You want to make the awkward moment disappear. You don't want your daughter to feel embarrassed or rejected or uncomfortable because watching our kids struggle is hard, like really hard. Last week at camp, I found myself standing in one of those moments, and I've been thinking about it ever since. Before camp even started, one mom wrote something on her daughter's registration form that caught my attention. She shared that her daughter could be pretty quiet and sometimes had a hard time jumping into groups. I made a little mental note. Because after all these years of teaching and working with girls, I've learned something. The girls who don't immediately run into the middle of the room, the ones who quietly watch before they join, the ones who stay close to a parent for just a little longer, they're often carrying a lot more on the inside than we realize. I've learned that the girls who look the quietest on the outside often have the loudest worries on the inside. So throughout the first day of camp, I kept checking on her. Not in an obvious way, just little glances, seeing how she was doing. At lunch, I noticed she chose to sit by herself. During free time, she'd watch the other girls laughing together. She wasn't upset. She wasn't crying. She just couldn't figure out quite how to get from watching to joining. Tuesday looked a lot like Monday. She smiled when we talked, and I made sure that I helped her join girls and made sure she was sitting with other girls and doing all those things, even on Monday. She participated in every activity, but the friendships and meeting new people still fell out of reach for her. Then Wednesday came. The girls were outside playing a game together. I noticed her watching them. She'd take a step toward the group, then stop. She'd look over, then look back down. You could almost see the conversation happening in her head. Finally, I walked over and quietly asked, "Do you want to go play with them?" She nodded. Then she looked up at me and quietly asked, "Can you ask them if I can play?" I don't know why, but that question has stayed with me. Maybe because I could hear how badly she wanted to join them. And it is my number one goal to help girls feel that sense of belonging from the day that they walk in. But for some girls, it takes a little. Maybe because I also knew exactly how she was feeling. I had experienced that myself growing up. Or maybe because, if I'm honest, I saw a little bit of all of us in that moment. Who hasn't wished someone else could do the hard part? Can I ask you something? If you had been standing there, what would you have done? Because honestly, I know exactly what I wanted to do. I wanted to walk over, ask for her, problem solved. She'd be playing in less than 10 seconds. And I don't think that would have made me a bad leader or a bad adult or a bad person. And I've done it lots of times. I think it would have made me human. Because when we love our kids, we hate watching them struggle. We hate watching them feel left out. We hate watching them feel nervous. We hate watching them stand on the outside, whether they're 6 or 16. And I wonder if that's why these moments can be so difficult for us as parents. Not because we don't know what our daughters are capable of, but because it's painful to watch them wrestle with something we could fix so quickly. And standing there, I realized I had two choices. I could solve the problem, and I had been helping her a lot with sitting near other girls, helping coach her through what to say if she felt brave enough to say something to the girls. Or instead of solving the problem for her, I could help her grow through it. Those aren't always the same thing. So instead of saying, "Of course, I'll go ask," I smiled and said, "I'll walk with you." That was it. Not, "You're on your own." Not, "You need to figure this out yourself." Just, "I'll walk with you." We practiced one sentence, literally one sentence. "Hi, can I play too?" Then we walked over together. I stood right beside her. She took a deep breath, looked at the girls, and asked. And do you know what they said? "Of course, come play with us." Because at Girls Positivity Club, we always talk about how we are the group of girls who invites others and who says yes when they ask to join. They scooted over without hesitation, made room for her, and just like that, she was in. I've been thinking about that moment all week, not because she joined the game, but because of what almost happened. If I had walked over and asked for her, she probably still would have been invited to play. She still would have had fun. She still may have made friends, but something would have been missing. She would have missed the chance to discover, I can do this. And I think that's something we don't talk about enough as parents. Sometimes we confuse relief with confidence. Relief is when someone else steps in and makes the hard moment disappear. Confidence is what begins to grow when our daughters realize, I did something hard and I was okay. Those aren't the same thing. Now, before I go any further, I want to be really clear. This isn't one of those episodes where I'm going to tell you that you should never help your daughter, because that's not true. There are absolutely moments when our daughters need us to step in, when they're unsafe, when they're being bullied, when they're completely overwhelmed, when something is beyond what they're developmentally ready to handle. That's part of our job. This is about something different. It's about those everyday moments, the ones that could go either way. The restaurant, the birthday party, the dance studio, the youth group, the first day of school, the moment before she asks another girl if she can sit by her. Those are the moments I've started thinking differently about. Because I've realized there are so many responses between "I'll do it for you" and "you're on your own." Those aren't our only two choices. Sometimes the answer is, "I'll walk with you." Sometimes it's, "Let's practice what you want to say." Sometimes it's, You ask first, and if you get stuck, I'll help. Sometimes it's simply standing there, letting your presence become the courage she borrows until she finds her own. And you know what's interesting? Parents tell me all the time, I just wish she was more confident. And I completely understand that. I've wished that for girls I worked with too. Standing there that day, I realized something. She wasn't confident, not even close. She was scared. And then I started thinking, when have I felt completely confident before doing something hard? Honestly, almost never. Whether it's speaking in front of people, walking into a room where I don't know anyone, starting something new, or having a difficult conversation. Confidence usually isn't what gets me moving. Courage is. Confidence comes later, after I realize, okay, I did that. And I wonder if that's true for our daughters too. Maybe we're waiting for them to feel confident, when what they really need is someone to help them take care of them and help them take one brave step. I've also been thinking about fear. I wonder if sometimes we see fear as a sign our daughters aren't ready. They're nervous, they're hesitant, they're unsure. So we assume maybe she's not ready yet. But what if fear isn't a stop sign? What if it's simply a sign that she's doing something new? Because if you think about it, every time our daughters grow, there's usually a little fear sitting right beside them. Walking into kindergarten, trying out for the team, sleeping away from home, walking over to a group of girls. Fear doesn't always mean don't. Sometimes it simply means this matters. That realization has changed the way I look at those moments. By Friday, the same little girl wasn't standing on the outside anymore. She was laughing, talking, playing games. And in fact, she had even made up a game that everybody loved to play. If you had walked into camp that afternoon, you probably never would have guessed she'd spent the first couple of days quietly watching from the sidelines. And at the end of every camp, we go around the room and ask each girl to share her favorite part of the week. When it was her turn, she smiled and said, making new friends. I smiled. And honestly, I smiled all the way home because I realized something. Making friends wasn't actually the biggest victory. Walking over was. Because without that moment on Wednesday, there probably isn't a Friday story. And I wonder how many moments like that we miss as parents. We naturally celebrate the outcome. You made the team. You got invited to the birthday party. You ordered all by yourself. You made a new friend. Those are wonderful things to celebrate and say. But what if we also celebrated the courage it took to get there? What if instead of only saying, I'm so proud you made the team, we also said, I'm so proud of how brave you were to try out. Instead of you made a new friend, we said, I noticed how brave you were when you walked over and introduced yourself. Instead of you ordered your own food, we said, I know that felt scary and you did it anyway. Did you hear the difference? One celebrates the outcome. The other celebrates the character that's being built. And if we're trying to raise confident girls, I think that's one of the greatest gifts we can give them. Because confidence isn't built by hearing, good job, even though, of course, we're going to tell them that. Confidence grows when our daughters begin recognizing, I did something that was hard for me. And that leads me to something I've started asking myself something more often. When my daughter or one of the girls I work with asks, can you ask for me? I try to pause before I answer. Not because the answer is always no. Sometimes the answer absolutely is, I've got this. There are moments when our girls need us to advocate for them, to protect them, to step in. That's part of our job as parents. But I've started asking myself one question first. Does she need my voice or does she need my support? Those aren't the same thing. Sometimes she simply needs to know she's not walking into the hard thing alone. And I found that one little phrase has changed so many of those moments. Instead of saying, I'll do it, I say, I'm right here beside you. Sometimes it's, let's practice what you want to say. Sometimes it's, would you like me to stand with you while you ask? Sometimes it's, you start, and if you need me, I'll jump in. Those are such small changes, but they communicate something huge. They say, I believe you can do this. Our daughters borrow our belief long before they fully believe in themselves. That's what the little girl did on Wednesday. For a moment, she borrowed my belief in her. She wasn't ready to do it alone, but she was ready to do it with someone beside her. And maybe that's what they're asking us for more often than we realize. Not, will you do this for me, but will you stay with me while I do something that's scary? I think those are two very different questions. One day, our girls won't be asking us to order their food, or ask if they can play, or email the teacher. One day, they'll be walking into job interviews, introducing themselves to new co-workers, having difficult conversations, setting boundaries, advocating for themselves, using their voice in ways that really matter. And I believe girls do this all along the way. And maybe these little everyday moments, the ones that seem so ordinary, are actually preparing them for those much bigger moments later in life. Maybe that's why they matter so much. So the next time your daughter leans over and whispers, can you ask for me? Maybe don't answer right away. Just pause for a second. Not because the answer is always no. Sometimes she truly needs you to speak for her. Sometimes she needs you to advocate for her. Sometimes she needs you to protect her. But sometimes I've realized she's asking you something else. Most of the time, she isn't asking you to do the hard thing for her. She's asking you not to leave while she does something hard. That little girl wasn't really asking me to join the game for her. She was asking, will you stay with me while I do something scary? Maybe that's what our girls need most. Not someone to remove every obstacle. Not someone to speak every word for them. But someone who believes they can do hard things and is willing to stand beside them while they try. Because one day, they won't need us standing beside them anymore. They'll walk into the interview, have the difficult conversation, introduce themselves to someone new, speak up for what they believe, advocate for themselves, use their voice, and maybe, more often than we realize, confidence begins with one simple sentence from someone who loves them. I'll walk with you. Thanks so much for spending a few minutes with me today. And until next time, go remind your daughter who she is. Thanks for joining another empowering episode of the Raising Confident Girls podcast. Share today's insights with caregivers and friends, building beautiful relationships with strong girls. Hit subscribe so you never miss an episode. We're not just a podcast, we're a community. Follow Girls Positivity Club on social media for more empowering content on Instagram, Facebook, TikTok, and YouTube. This podcast empowers you, supporting incredible girls. Let's create strong, beautiful relationships with the girls in our lives. I appreciate you listening today. Stay confident, stay connected. Until next time, keep raising those confident girls. You've got this.